Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Marketing Podcast, your source for all things marketing. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Sean Foote on the line, and he's Director of Digital Marketing over at Wilton Brands. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So excited to get into today's topic, Sean. I mean, you're the guy I want to talk to this about. So key components to digital marketing in today's marketplace. But before we get into that, I want to get a little bit further into what you're doing over at Wilton Brands. So tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Sure. So Wilton Brands is a bakeware and consumables company focused on the inspiration of creativity in everyone, everywhere, every day. And we looked really for that connectivity between baking and decorating and how people share that experience with their families. It's a 90-year-old legacy brand focused on omni-channel marketing and with key partners like Walmart, Target, Amazon, with a strong focus on content, which would be inbound marketing, right, as well as the overall digital marketing effort, with a consumer-centric and data-driven approach, which is something we'll definitely get into in this discussion.
All right, Sean. So I think that's a great transition and way to get into today's topic. So let's see. So key components to digital marketing in today's marketplace. Where do you want to start with tackling that one?
Sure. I'll I think it's helpful to outline it first, right, because there's a lot to consider here. But there's really three main components, with two that are very foundational. One of which is starting with your audience, or a term that's kind of thrown around a lot now is consumer-centrism, right? So it's everything from the product to the marketing and messaging to the asset. It all starts with the consumer's needs and challenges, right? Alongside with that, just as importantly is having a data-driven methodology, right? So you start with first and third-party data points to inform the direction overall, and really the more sophisticated enterprises inform their processes, everything they do on a daily basis with data to some degree. And this makes the product and content inherently smarter and thereby more efficient in the market. And as you know, Adam, efficiency really is the foundation of growth. Right, so that data-driven methodology is key, and then how consumer centrism and really listening to your audience paired with that data-driven methodology roll into what is considered to be that organization's or our organization at Wilton, the full digital ecosystem, which is really the marketing funnel, inbound, outbound activations, and then of course. You can't be in business these days without technology and martech specifically being a large part of the conversation. So it's really consumer centrism paired with data-driven methodology and how they support your larger digital ecosystem.
Let's talk a little bit more about the martech component of this, because there's a lot of different business owners, entrepreneurs, executives listening, and you have the benefit of working with such an established brand, been around for a long time, cutting edge on this stuff in a very defined niche. How does martech affect a brand like that, like a large established brand like yours?
Oh yeah, I'd say it's table stakes. These days, you really have to leverage automation to scale, right? And what does automation mean, or what does martech mean as it applies to digital, right? So Some examples that might be more well known are like email marketing and email marketing automation, right? How do you build out segmentation for your list? Obviously, analytics and tracking are also key considerations. People are very familiar with platforms like AdWords and Google Analytics. Well, how do you centralize for example, at Wilton, we have over 5 million followers on social, right? Pretty much industry leading in our vertical. How do we also work in email? How do we work in paid media? How do we work in organic or search engine optimization, right? How do we pool all of these into one place so we can get at them and visualize the data in a way that's actionable for the enterprise, right? So I think it's a combination of analytics, automation, and then what's coming down the pipe, right? Or I would say it's actually here now, and it's becoming a differentiator for brands, is is experimentation and personalization, right? And what does that mean? Well, experimentation is like split testing, meaning like A/B tests, where you really kind of put on, what I like to say is put on the lab coat as a marketer and start to challenge your best practices and challenge your assumptions, and then layer that on with like an evolution to true one-to-one personalization, where a user's interaction with the website actually helps evolve the website to make it more personalized to their habits and to their affinities. And you kind of leverage all of those together, and that's what really drives efficiency and then ultimately scale over time.
Man, that whole concept of hyper personalization is just so interesting to me. Like, and if we think about like what was the first personalization, it was probably like you could use the person's name in an email on an email list. Like you could put dear so and so, be dear Sean or dear Adam with the same email, and that was cool to me way back when. I'm like, whoa, it's an email to me, right? But now, like the level of hyper personalization, especially when you think about things like chatbots and just all these other things, it just becomes really interesting to be able to build a relationship with a consumer over time using automation. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound funny to you, Sean, but it might not sound funny to you, but it might sound funny to other people listening that aren't marketers or professionals. But I swear I've used chatbots and other automation tools that I know companies set up for me, to where I've had multiple customer service interactions with their automation tools, and I feel closer to that brand because the tools were so good that my problem was solved every time, and it was the same as if I was talking to a person. That's hyper-personalization at its highest level. I have an emotional connection to the company based off the service they provided, even though I haven't even talked to anybody at the company, based off of the automated tools they provided to help me in these multiple situations. Hyper-personalization, I think, is really, like you said, it's here, but it's going to get even more interesting going forward.
Yep, absolutely. And it's the whole Internet of Things, right? And voice search and the Alexas of the world, so to speak, right? Amazon being a big player there. It's really how is artificial intelligence being wrapped into business and into digital? And I'd say like 2 or 3 years ago, it was a luxury. And I think anymore, brands that really want to scale and want to stay differentiated beyond just the basics like content and, inbound, outbound methodology, really need to leverage technology to grow. I mean, it's becoming more and more foundational.
Let's talk to our small business owners for a moment, Sean. So obviously you're working with a big company, big brand, lots of followers. What are some? But I know you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in marketing. What is a thing or two that maybe small business owners should be thinking about right now when it comes to their marketing, from your vantage point, that is?
Absolutely. I'd say one of them, and it's along the same lines, the two things that I called out aren't gated by resources, right? So
really glad you said that, by the way, Sean. Really glad you said that, Sean. But then that's why I asked the question, because I was hoping you'd go back there, because I'm like, I don't want people that are listening to this to think, only Wilton can do this, or no, it's the same thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to throw that out there. I'm glad you went there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what does customer-centrism and data-driven methodology mean to the SMB? And a little bit of context here, by the way. I've been in small business. I've been in startup. So, my experience, I have experience at Google as well, right? So I've kind of been on both sides of the pond there, and I understand, the challenges with both kind of, users. But customer-centrism, right? What is that really about at its foundation? It's just really understanding your users, right? And there are tools out there that are free, like Google Analytics, and the affinities and the demographics and the tools that you can leverage. I would say one piece of advice is get to know Google Analytics. If you aren't using it, you're already behind the 8 ball, right? So Google has classes out there that you can take, for certification. I would recommend, either the owners or someone on their team in marketing, depending on the structure of their organization, take that and really start to understand their audience. So their users that come to their website, what devices are they on? What affinities do they have? What content are they attracted to, right? You pair that with the data-driven methodology of we all have our assumptions and our inherent biases, right? We all do. That's just a fact. So how do we step outside of our comfort zone a little bit and look at the data to become more objectionable and really make smarter choices for the business outside of our bias, right? And I think those two things compare, I'd say, along with being really smart with the content and where you do invest, like what type of content is your business creating to inspire engagement, right? And those three things paired together with how you're activating, and I could talk to you an hour about just marketing activation in general, from a full funnel, from the top, like attraction, consideration, decision, and delight, right? How is each organization and each lever within your business investing in those areas so you have I would say, a replicatable marketing process and a funnel that's filling the top and also retaining, right? So
I love it.
So Google Analytics is foundational, right? Be smart with your paid media, leverage paid social, leverage search smartly, but really make it all built on that foundation of customer centrism and a data-driven methodology, and you're setting yourself up for success.
Man, I love it, and I knew you'd give me one solid takeaway and that I could bring out in that Google Analytics for all you small business owners. I'll pick on our company just for example. We finally set it up. You've been telling me to do it forever. I didn't do it for maybe a year and a half or something, and our website was just like a resume. It wasn't I didn't have it set up right. All these other things. I look and just one metric, our bounce rate on the old website was something ridiculous, 70-something%. So that nobody was staying on the site. They'd go to it and they'd be gone in a second or two. So when we set up a new site, we did it on WordPress, just whatever. Nothing, it's a nice template site. It's nothing crazy. But our bounce rate went to 0.07%, and our page views increased by something like 400%, all organic. We didn't include anything else, and all of a sudden we went from or actually way more than that. We went to over 10,000 page views immediately within the first month without any paid or anything, just whatever. And versus our old one that we are lucky to do. Actually, I said 4 times, no, it was 10 times. Our first site was 1,000 page views a month or something. We weren't paying attention to it at all, and they're wait, we did all of our business and everything on social. And we're wait a minute, how do we not have the website right? And why? Because we downloaded Google Analytics, and then we realized, holy smokes, people are going to this, number one, but number two, nobody's staying. That's a big problem. So I'm picking on us for that. And the reason I'm picking on us as an example is because I know there's a lot of business owners right now listening to this that are just as bad. So I want you to go set up Google Analytics and get your stuff together like we did. So thank you, Sean.
Absolutely. It takes a certain amount of discipline, right, to step outside of your inherent bias. But your point on bounce rate, for example, right? Let's just drill down a little bit there. So bounce rate is a ranking factor, right? So it's something that that Google's algorithm looks at, but it's also a user experience consideration, right? What specifically, just rhetorically here, if someone lands on your homepage, how are you making strategic decisions with your content? What's above the fold with your navigation to drive them deeper into your website to avoid the bounce, right? So it's really basic questions we have to ask based on where we're landing traffic. And you can get to a lot of that in Google Analytics. A lot of the times it'll be someone's homepage because of organic results. But if people are running paid media, that might not be the primary page to consider, right? So again, getting back to that data-driven methodology and really paying attention, we say getting into the weeds, right, with the data and starting to make it actionable, right? So you need to understand how Google's algorithm works. You need to understand, a media strategy and what you're trying to do there. And then you kind of piecemeal this all together, and that enables you to take your data and make it so you can leverage it for your business and make it truly actionable, not just kind of a stockpile sitting there that, you're not really actively doing anything with.
Man, that's awesome. And I think that's a great way to end it, Sean, to avoid the bounce. But before we do end it, if somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more about Wilton Brands or to connect, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. Well, you can always check out, our website, wilton.com. You can see, I'm doing a lot of walking the walk there with our website. We actually just launched a fresh one in January, so you can kind of check that out. You can also get in touch with me directly through LinkedIn. I'm always posting stuff there and sharing tidbits that, I have a pretty good followership there. And if you're interested, echo some of it on Twitter as well. But I'm also a pro-am photographer and travel photographer. If that's one of your interests as well, you can check me out on Instagram at Sean Foote Photo.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Sean, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great things you're doing over at Wilton Brands, and also providing those tips for small business owners out there. Get that Google Analytics set up. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes store, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Marketing, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to hear your thoughts and what kind of projects you're working on. And Sean, thanks again for coming on the show.